Classical conditioning is mostly credited to Russian psychologist Ivan Pavlov. In a study meant to observe salivation in dogs in response to being fed, Pavlov accidentally discovered classical conditioning. While the dogs should only salivate when the food is being brought to them, they began to salivate even without the presence of food. What Pavlov had discovered was that the dogs had associated different variables, the lab assistant's presence, the sound of them walking, and eventually a bell when he tested it, that made them begin to salivate even without the food. In classical conditioning, you link two or more stimuli together to anticipate an event. Before conditioning can occur, there is always an unconditioned stimulus, a stimulus that naturally and automatically triggers a response, and a neutral stimulus, a stimulus that elicits no response before conditioning. Through classical conditioning, you can create a conditioned stimulus and a conditioned response. This conditioned stimulus is a previously neutral stimulus that triggers a conditioned response after association with the unconditioned stimulus. This new response to the conditioned stimulus, even without the unconditioned stimulus, is the conditioned response. Overall, classical conditioning can be simplified down to one equation. US, unconditioned stimulus, plus NS, neutral stimulus, equals the conditioned stimulus, CS, or CR, the conditioned response. Another famous study of classical conditioning in action is John B. Watson's Little Albert experiment. In this experiment, baby Albert was exposed to a range of fluffy animals to play with. Once it was observed that Albert liked playing with the rat the most, Watson began to make a loud sound behind the baby's head, eliciting fear in him. After a few trials, Albert had been classically conditioned and began to fear the rat's presence, even if the loud sound was not made. Unfortunately for little Albert, his fear of rats extended into a generalization of all furry creatures, but we'll dig deeper into the generalization later. It is a relatively simple concept which can be even used today in everyday life. You can even classically condition yourself. For example, if you want to stop yourself from buying fast food after conservatory, you can use classical conditioning to help you. First off, you would need an unconditioned stimulus that naturally made you lose your appetite, maybe pictures of bugs. After that, you would need a neutral stimulus, perhaps your car, to become your conditioned stimulus. If you leave the picture of bugs in your car, you'll come to associate the feeling of loss of appetite coming from the bug pictures to being in your car. So since you will not feel hungry after getting in your car, you will have classically conditioned yourself to avoid fast food after conservatory. Operant conditioning is a type of learning in which behavior is strengthened or diminished depending on whether or not it is presented with a reinforcer or a punisher. Most accredited to B.F. Skinner, there are four types of operant conditioning: positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, positive punishment, and negative punishment. Positive reinforcement is, say, whenever Cole takes out the trash, his mom gives him an ice cream. Now that Cole gets an ice cream whenever he does this, he throws the trash out more frequently. His mom is using positive reinforcement as the desirable stimulus, the ice cream, is being added to strengthen a behavior, in this case being taking out the trash. Negative reinforcement is after a long day of dance, Alexa is bruised and sore and takes an Advil to ease the pain. The Advil takes away the pain and makes Alexa feel better, so she is more likely to take Advil after dance. This is an example of negative reinforcement. In this scenario, a stimulus is removed, the pain, but also strengthens the behavior, taking Advil. Positive punishment would be Angel gets in trouble whenever his parents find him staying up too late. So whenever they find him staying up past midnight, they make him do the dishes the next day. Angel hates doing the dishes, so he will now be less likely to stay up past midnight. His parents are using positive punishment as they are adding an undesirable stimulus, doing the dishes, to diminish a behavior, staying up past midnight. Negative punishment would be Shannon gets in trouble for getting C's on her AP Calc tests. Whenever she gets a C, her mom does not let her go out on weekends to hang out with friends. Now, Shannon studies and makes sure not to get C's on her math tests. Her mom is using negative punishment as she removes a wanted stimulus, going out with friends, to diminish a behavior of getting C's on an exam. The reinforcement schedules include continuous reinforcement, such as giving a dog a treat every time it does a trick; fixed ratio, which reinforces a response only after a specified number of responses, like giving a dog a treat after it plays dead 5 times in a row; variable interval reinforces a response at unpredictable time intervals, like waiting for a nice day to go camping or pop quizzes; fixed interval reinforces a response only after a specified time has elapsed, like hourly pay. No matter how much you work, you get paid the same amount every hour. Variable interval reinforces a response after an unpredictable number of responses. Slot machines or gambling in Las Vegas are good examples of that.